Bum, bum, dun, da, 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 dun, 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 da, 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 dun, 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 da, 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 dun, 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 dun. Hey, everybody. The video stream should be beginning soon. How are you? My name is Bo. I'm your friendly host here for Morbid Mondays, as we like to call it around here. You may notice that there's a bit of a change to what is behind me. Normally, I got the fancy green screen up, but I didn't have time tonight to get the green screen set up, so I apologize. Instead, we do have over here, over there, we still have the movie posters, which I like, but yeah, we'll do something fancier later. A little bit of a different setup, so I hope the sound is okay, and we'll see how it goes. So, yeah, what is going on, everyone? Hey, there we go. Got the chat going, got sound going. It's almost like we have a show. So, let's start the way we always start here on the Morbid Mondays by saying howdy do to all the shows what have dropped since we last spoke. And actually, we were off last week because of Labor Day, national holiday, and, you know, it was a 3-day weekend. I wanted to take some advantage of it, so I did. I took some time off. It was great. And by time off, I mean continue to work on podcast stuff. So, but hey, here's what dropped, about the past week or so. You got your Kill the Cast dropping another episode of Underwater Kaiju from Outer Space, episode number 6 of that sideshow, on Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah from 1991. We'll be visiting King Ghidorah again, both on the last Hero Go show and on the forthcoming episode this month. So King Ghidorah getting around. A little bit of a kaiju tramp, if you will. BD Clinic episode 16 dropped, entitled Summer Vacation, talking about the films Death to Smoochie and Orgasmo. It was an episode that Vanessa teased on the last episode of Devour the Podcast, and I mentioned it to her then. I will mention it again now. The song from Orgasmo, Now You're a Man, is one of my favorite things ever. So, you know, if you've never seen Orgasmo, it's almost worth it for that. More Under My Wheels dropping from Rick Morgan. Cinema Beef Podcast, episode 123. An episode entitled Beef Stewed on Sight. Talking about a little Sonny Chiba, some Peter Fonda films. It's all good. 2 drink minimum commentaries on Nightmare Beach, the John Saxon classic. The guys over at Friday's Favorite Movies talking about the movie Clue on their favorite movies, sort of bonus episodes over there on Friday the 13th. Witch versus the Doomsday Clock, week number 56, 10 hours, 15 minutes to Doomsday. An episode entitled Down Boy, featuring the film Dracula's Dog. Ricky Morgan showing up on The Witch versus the Doomsday Clock. And that's a great movie. I mean, it's great. It's great in that the movie exists. There is a movie called Dracula's Dog that you can go watch right now. And that's a wonderful thing. What else? Little Legion. Oh, I've got it turned around the wrong way. Spooktember week 1. So that's my experiment in watching a horror movie a day in the month of September. Quite frankly, I got too much to do in October with the Halloween season here on the site. Don't have time to sit around and watch a movie every night, unfortunately. So I decided to do it this month in Spooktember. And in that episode, I talked about Eyes of My Mother and Are We Not Cats, Piranha, Into the Grizzly Maze, 88's The Blob, The Reef, Return of the Living Dead. I think that's everything. But anyway, working on episode 2 of that as I continue to watch movies here in Spooktember. So there'll be another one of those dropping on Friday. Mental Health, episode 10. Another great show here, relatively new still, although now it feels less new. You know, it's a great show, but if you're interested in metal music or mental health issues or the combination of the two, you ought to check that show out. It's a wonderful show. Very happy to have it here on the network. Cinema Psyops, episode 160, another Movie Stack Jenga episode on The Naked Cage. Things are getting sexy. Podcast on Haunted Hill, episode 65, on The Burning and Tourist Trap. Two movies that I've got a lot of time for, especially that Tourist Trap. I like Tourist Trap. Tourist Trap's super weird in a way that I really like. Who Will Survive dropped a bonus episode number 12 today, talking another Wolf Cop with Lowell Dean of Wolf Cop fame. And that's all right here on the podcast network. I didn't even go back to the week before last. That's how much content you get around here. Quality podcasting of all stripes. Horror stuff, music stuff. It's great. Anyway, let's check in with chat. What's going on here? Michelle's here. Hello. Gary is here. What's happening, man? Alan says he is scandalized by the lack of a green screen. Just calm down, man. We'll do it next time. Paul says, hey yourself, sir. And Andrew is here. What is going on, Andrew Huff? Gary says he enjoyed the Spook Timber Jam. Thanks, man. I enjoyed it as well. I thought that was it's fun. I like doing those kind of short form podcasts for additional Devour the Podcast content. And yeah, I want to do more of that kind of stuff. It's not something that I have time to do all the time, but it makes me happy when I can, get something out kind of on a weekly basis. And at any rate, I plan to do more of that is the moral of the story there. So what do we want to chit chat about tonight, guys? Obviously, if there's something that you've got on your mind, let me know. Otherwise, I will launch in to the stuff that was sticking in my craw here on this particular Morbid Monday. And let's begin with something I've been thinking about quite a bit, which is The Nun, which I got to admit I have not seen yet. So bear with me. But yeah, so I'm gonna watch that Wednesday, and the reason I wanted to mention it here is because the Nun, it did super well at the box office over the weekend, which is great, and it also pushed the Conjuring series into the most profitable horror series of all time. I didn't dig deep into figuring out if that was adjusted for inflation. Like, I have a hard time believing that, well, maybe I don't, that of all the Friday the 13th and Halloweens that they cumulatively would not have made a ton of money as well. But maybe so. Maybe, the Conjuring, what else would be included in that? Conjuring 2, Annabelle Creation, and The Nun? Am I missing anything? Any other ones that are offshoots of that? And I'm of two minds about this. On the one hand, I love it when horror films achieve legitimacy. I think it's great when there are horror movies that capture people's imaginations and people turn out for them. The big problem I have with the whole situation is just that I don't care for those Conjuring movies too much. But I also have been resisting the urge to kind of poop on it a little bit. Like, I've been trying to look at it as a wholly good thing that, like I said, I haven't seen the movie yet, so I can't speak to the quality of the film itself. I'm certainly optimistic. I mean, the movie's done well. The reviews have been mostly okay for it, and I hope it does well. But I don't know. We'll see how it goes. If any of you have seen it, let me know how it is. Let me know what to expect. No spoilers. Just tell me if it's worth the watch. Especially for someone like myself that doesn't really care for the Conjuring movies all that much. I like the original Conjuring up until the possession scenes at the end. I thought those were real dopey, and I didn't really care for Conjuring too much at all. Um, and Annabelle Creation I thought was okay. The original Annabelle I thought was real bad, but that second Annabelle movie I thought was above average. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Um, but yeah, that, like I said, I'm of two minds. On the one hand, I don't want to crap on anybody's good time, because hey, it's great that a horror film is rocking the box office. It's got people excited about horror movies. There are more to come. I mean, when It Part 2 lands next year, that movie is going to make all of the money. In addition to the other stuff, like Halloween's right around the corner. The reboot of Halloween is getting some decent buzz. Although still not a movie I'm excited about, strangely. Just on the premise alone, it's just not something that it's not a movie I feel like I want. I want them to just do a Halloween movie. I don't want a Laurie Strode story, which is odd, I know. But at any rate, but yeah, I'm kind of celebrating The Nun, but also not terribly excited about seeing it. But we're gonna cover it for Devour the Podcast, and it's a thing I feel like I should see. So I don't know. We'll see how it all goes. I'm torn. My heart is split in twain about the Nun stuff. So Gary saying The Nun made its nut for short. Yeah. Paul, I've seen none of the Conjuring universe movies. It's fine. All right. So Alan says, man, if you factor in that the Wan stuff is Warren's derived, that's the root of my problem with these movies, I think. Well, one, I'm just not a big fan of James Wan's brand of horror. It's not really my flavor. It's a lot. It's very classical, but it leans a little bit too much on the jump scare and that kind of thing. And usual complaints with James Wan. But the other problem I have is that the Warrens are hucksters, and the movie is. Those Conjuring films are presenting the Warrens as, these religious champions and religious knights marching into battle against evil. And the reality is they were just bilking, the public out of money and going along, like all the stuff they did with the Amityville house, and the truth of that coming out of like, oh no, this was something that even the Lutz's attorney were like, oh yeah, we made all this up. And the Warrens just, jumped on that bandwagon, and all the reports of them telling writers that they have worked with, like, just make it scary. It doesn't matter how true it is, just make it scary. And, if they presented their work as fiction and fun, that would be great. But they don't. And instead they pretend it's all true and take people for a ride. And I'm not a fan of that. So yeah, Gary saying the Jamins in her Wanaverse. Yeah. We the Wanaverse is happening. And I'm curious to see The Nun. I hope I like it, just so I can tell Jamie, like, you know what, I'm totally on board with this one. And I've heard the word gothic being attached to this movie, and nunsploitation, and which in my mind are two totally different things. There's like gothic hammer horror, and there's nunsploitation, but they're not really the same thing. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm trying to avoid reviews as much as possible so that I can approach this all fresh like. Abraham is here. What's going on, man? Gary says maybe we'll get Jamie Lee reenacting the bagel scene from the zombie remake. Fair enough. Paul says he'd watch Jamie Lee finger bang a bagel. I love Jamie Lee Curtis. I think it's funny, though. I think that one of the things that is seminal to my own childhood and development was being a fan of the movie Halloween, and then when Trading Places came out, I saw that, of course, and that was after she had the boob job, and it was like, holy crap, when did Jamie Lee Curtis get boobs? And it turns out when she visited her surgeon. So, those were seminal boobs for me. Seminiferous tubloidal boobs. Yeah. So enough about The Nun. I think we'll talk more about it on Devour once I see it. I think that should be out next week ish. No, week after. It'll be out more towards the end of the month. Next week will probably be Hero and another Spooktober episode. Other stuff to discuss. Hey, I rewatched that Mummy remake. Little bit of behind the curtain stuff, a little inside baseball. I watched the Mummy remake because we are going to discuss that on the new season of Pick Six Movies, which is about 75% done. We're just kind of waiting to release so that we get a little closer to Halloween. And mine were that girl from Just One of the Guys, says Gary. Not horror, but damn. Yeah, Just One of the Guys are seminal boobs for me. Fright Night, the hooker that gets bit in Fright Night, is a seminal boob. I don't know. I'd have to think about it some more. Those are the ones off the top of my head that I'm like, oh yeah, that really turned me around. Maybe Return of the Living Dead, Linnea Quigley in that, maybe. Anyway, I would have been about 12 when that came out. That feels about right. So anyway, Abraham also said, hey, I finally watched Videodrome. It was a mind trip, but I really enjoyed it. Videodrome is great. Long live the new flesh. Videodrome is one of those movies that gives and gives and gives. Every time you watch Videodrome, you will like it a little more, I will wager. You just get more out of it. And Debbie Harry is so amazing in that. Speaking of seminal boobs, oh my god. Videodrome was one of those things where I was like, what is this? I've never seen sex like this before. And it's all sweaty and they're just smoking and fucking and sweating on each other. It's great. Anyway, sorry, I haven't had a cigarette in a long time, and I get fond about the experience now that I don't smoke anymore and don't feel ashamed of myself for being a smoker. When I think about smoking, I romanticize it now. Like, every time I think about smoking, it's always black and white, lights coming through Venetian blinds, having the cigarette. It's so good. Nothing smells like smoke. It all just smells like old films. Anyway, The Mummy is what I was going to talk about. But really, The Mummy in relation to a couple of other things. So, I think we can all acknowledge, if you haven't seen it, don't. The Mummy 2017 is not a very good movie. In fact, it's a very bad movie. It's a really loud, dumb action movie that doesn't know exactly what it wants to be and does a really piss poor job of setting up the franchise that they wanted to set up, both with Dracula Untold and then The Mummy. But it also led me, as I was watching it, down the path of thinking about remakes in general and how a lot of people are knee-jerk against the idea of horror movie remakes. And I am not one of those people. I am all for remaking whatever you want, kind of. Like when they said they were going to remake Halloween, I was like, fine. John Carpenter is going to get his check no matter what. That makes me happy. Any success that man gets is overdue as far as I'm concerned. But also, I wanted to evaluate sort of the current trends of remakes, which I think are pretty good. Because as I mentioned on the Spooktober thing, I recently watched the remake of The Blob, which the remake of The Blob is really good. The Piranha remake, even though I was watching the original Piranha, the Alexander Aja remake of Piranha is really fun. Not as good as the original, but really good. Really entertaining. And so I'm not against remakes. I'm just against remakes for the wrong reasons. And I think the Dark Universe Mummy remake, this guy, was done for all the wrong reasons. It was done to do a bunch of expository world building for a series that they wanted to get off the ground. and didn't really have a story, it seems like, or listen to the Pick 6 episode when it lands in October. But it doesn't seem like they had a real clear vision for what they wanted this thing to be. And that leads me to another thought I had about remakes, because this very day, if you were watching the horror-related news, Jordan Peele has been at least rumored to be looking at producing a remake of Candyman. And Candyman is a movie that gets a lot of love in the horror community, much like Pumpkinhead, which I don't think Pumpkinhead is a very good movie. I think Candyman's okay. I don't think Candyman is a great movie. I think it's all right. But the idea that Jordan Peele is going to take on the material, I find incredibly interesting. One, because he did Get Out, which is one of the best horror movies of the past, say 5 years, to be generous about it. And the fact that he wants to do his own take on the material, or at least give someone the opportunity to do a take on the material that seems racially centric or racial centric, I think is a great idea. Clearly Jordan Peele has shown that he can approach that sort of material without being overly didactic about it, but still get the point across. And Candyman is very much rooted in the idea of sort of slavery and the horrors of that, and the sins of that, the great American sin, quite frankly. Slavery has long been the thing that has made America appear with an asterisk. We are a great people that fought to keep a certain segment of our population enslaved, and has gone on to treat those self-same people really, really badly, even after they were unchained. So Jordan Peele doing a take on that material sounds really exciting to me. And I know there was an initial reaction to that, saying, "Oh, no, they shouldn't remake Candyman. Candyman's a classic; it's untouchable." And there were probably the people saying the same thing about The Fly, or not The Blob, probably, but The Thing from Another World, or Invasion of the Body Snatchers, or even It. I was one of those people that was like, I don't know if they need to remake it. The miniseries, the first half of the miniseries is great. The second half, Alan says voice modulation on Tony Todd ruins Candyman for me. I like Tony Todd in the movie, but yeah, I agree. The voice stuff is not great. All the B stuff is real cool. The fact that that's practical and everything is really neat. Let's see. Gary saying that he didn't hate the Dark Universe stuff. I thought Dracula Untold gave the character some depth that wasn't there before. Yeah, but I don't need Dracula to be a hero. This is my problem with all the Dark Universe stuff, just as an umbrella statement, is I want my monsters to be monstrous, not heroic. And trying to make them heroic misses the point. Even Frankenstein's monster, who comes the closest to being sympathetic, even though he is a reanimated corpse, what murders people on occasion, even he has the presence of mind at the end of Bride of Frankenstein to acknowledge we belong dead, and destroys the castle and himself and the bride. And I don't want Dracula to be the good guy. I don't want the Invisible Man to be the good guy. I want the Invisible Man to be a guy who becomes crazy with power and insane with the drug he's created, until the point that people have to get rid of him. So that's kind of my problem with all the Dark Universe stuff. I think it misses the point entirely of what those characters are. If you wanted to do a monstrous, let's take for example the Monster Squad, which is probably the most sympathetic looks at these characters, but even then, Frankenstein's monster is the good guy of the bunch, but at the end of that, he can't stick around either, because he's a goddamn monster. We got to get rid of him. We can't have him walking around roaming the earth. Anyway, Paul saying the Peele remake of Candyman would be sick. Yeah, that's kind of where I land on it. I think it's a great idea. So I'm in a weird way, I'm for remakes, which is what Abraham was pointing out. He was asking what I thought of the Robert Eggers directing Nosferatu. And yes, please. I mean, Robert Eggers has done. I'm gonna watch it this week. The Witch is on my list of movies I want to watch for my Spooktober, Spooktember, not Spooktober, Spooktember viewing. I'm gonna go back and watch The Witch again. And The Witch it might be in my personal top 10 horror films of all time. There is something about that movie that I find incredibly compelling. So yeah, him doing Nosferatu. I mean, Werner Herzog took a stab at it and did a really interesting take on it. I think the most interesting thing about that movie is the use of the vampire as metaphor for plague and disease. I think that's really interesting. And yeah, him doing I assume it's going to be a period piece because seems to be Robert Eggers' jam. So, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Oh man, Robert Eggers, just doing anything. As long as he stays in the horror genre and does these incredibly classy, like high-minded, but all at the same time visceral and unnerving as hell horror movies, do whatever you want, man. I'm on board. Gary says that Candyman 3 ruins Candyman. I don't mind Farewell to the Flesh. I have zero memory of Farewell to the Flesh, and I don't know that I ever saw the third one. Man, it's one of those things. There are things that I try my best to care about, and Candyman is one of those. And I just can't get myself there. I think it's okay. I've watched it within the past couple of years, and I thought it was okay. I just don't think it's a great horror film. I think it's all right. I think it's got some great imagery in it. As I recall, the music is not very good and was distracting. So yeah, I don't know. I wrestle with those things. But yeah, so the thesis of my argument here about Mummy 2017 and Candyman and all that stuff is just this, that I don't dislike the idea of remaking anything as long as there is a good reason. There was not a good reason to remake The Mummy. It was just a thing that somebody decided to do because they thought they could make a few bucks off of it, and it turned out to be poop. So yeah, let's talk about some other stuff. So there is the YouTube channel, what you're watching right now, just to remind you guys, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do. We are only 11 people away from getting our fancy URL, so I assume if you're watching this, you probably have subscribed, but if you haven't, please do. The work on video stuff continues. I have actually been honing my skills somewhat, and plan to do some more in line with that. Originally, I had hoped to have our top 100 of horror for the network done in time for Halloween. That just ain't going to happen. In fact, because of the stuff we've been doing with Devour and that kind of thing, I think it's going to be more likely that stuff starts after Halloween, which also has me kind of excited, because as we head into Christmas, we here on Devour are going to say, fuck Christmas, let's do more Halloween. So feel free to use that as your ringtone. So yeah, there is definitely more video stuff coming. It is something I think about on the daily, and in addition to doing these little shows, we'll be doing more stuff, and hopefully this coming Saturday we'll do another video game evening with Misty. Maybe play a little more Alan Wake. Got another game that I've been playing lately called Zombie Night Terror. That's kind of a Lemmings game with zombies. We might play some of that. So the Spooktember I mentioned, but and thanks for everyone who listened to the podcast episode on the first week of that and dropped me a line. Everybody was really nice, but I was kind of nervous about dropping that because it's just me talking about movies I watched. Gary's got to run. See you, Gary. Oh, that's right. Philip Glass does the score for the Candyman movie. I'm now looking at chat again. And yeah, that is a problem, because I remember that the score being inappropriate for the film. But you're right. I mean, I might need to go back and watch Candyman again pretty soon, as it turns out. But Spooktimber. What I was going to say about that, feel free to drop me a line either at Legion Podcasts on Twitter or on the Facebook page or the Devour Facebook page. Any of those places if you want to recommend a movie to me. So far, we have watched Memories of the Murder, which was a recommendation. Lake Nowhere, which was a recommendation, is on my list. Actually, tonight is going to be a recommendation from the lady, which is Hocus Pocus, to get her in the holiday spirit. So we're going to watch Hocus Pocus, and probably tomorrow I'm going to watch the Lake Nowhere, and got a couple of other movies on the list. Watch Pontypool again. Fuck. It's a good movie, y'all. Anyway, so that'll be continuing, and if you've got any suggestions, please drop into one of those places. Drop me a line. You can also email me at bo@legionpodcasts.com and let me know what you recommend for me. And I've been enjoying even the stuff that I haven't been that crazy about. It's always fun to blame you guys. So let's see. Coming up this week here on the streaming services, guys, as we bring this guy in for a landing. There's not a ton of stuff, unfortunately, hitting the streaming services this week. Netflix has Life coming, which is that Ryan Reynolds space alien movie, and it's not very good. I'm not crazy about that movie at all. Over on Hulu, they got a couple of movies. One is actually the very good South Korean film, The Housemaid. If you've never seen that, check that out. They've also got Hardware, which is the Richard, I can't think of his last name, the guy that wanted to do Island of Dr. Moreau, and there's the incredible documentary about the making of that movie. He also did a movie called Dust Devil, and I can't think of the guy's name now. Island of Lost Souls, I think, is the name of the documentary, or maybe I'm just confusing that with the original film with Charles Lawton as Dr. Moreau. At any rate, if you've never seen Hardware, it's a super stylish movie, but it's kind of cool, and I would recommend it. There's also a movie called Body Snatch that seems to be an alien invasion flick that's going to pop up on Hulu. And you also have, in a similar vein, a movie called Alien Invasion Sum-1, S-U-M-1. It's a German flick that is also showing up on Hulu in the, it's right there in the name, Alien Invasion. What do you want? Amazon got nothing for you. Again, we're all ramping up to the Halloween season. And on Shudder, actually, Shudder's only got one movie that they've listed as coming out in the next week, but it's one I can unreservedly recommend to you, and that is a movie called Revenge. It is a French rape revenge story, as the name would imply, and it is fucking great. It is brutal and over the top. Everybody in that movie has about 12 quarts of blood in them. It is fantastic, and the last 20 minutes of that movie are incredibly tense and exciting and wonderful, and you should watch Revenge if you've got Shudder, which again continues to be a great service for $5 a month. There is $5 worth of content on Shudder every month that I enjoy, and encourage you to do the same in the hopes that they will just, I don't know, hire us all or something. Paul pointing out Wolf Cop was added to Shudder a week or two ago. Yeah, there is good stuff. All the Chan-wook Park Vengeance films are on Shudder now. So if you haven't seen Old Boy in a while, what are you waiting for? That's there. It's so good. Alan asks, have you heard of a flick called Evil Words or Sur le Sul? It's a French-Canadian horror film that is underseen. If you or anybody else on Legion would be interested, I'll hook you up. Yeah, shoot it over to me, man. I'll give it a watch. I ain't afraid of it. Evil Words, you say? Sir, what? on the sul is tongue, maybe? Sur le, like, that's on the something, right? Sur la table is on the table. Le singe est sur la table is the monkey is on the table. Of course, I know the French word for monkey. It's how I roll. Okay. Hey, also, big thanks to you guys, who have subscribed on Patreon. We got a couple of subscribers on Patreon, and just those 2 subscribers, we covered about half the server cost for the year. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for doing it. The first commentary is now live over there, so you can hear me and Andrew and Maddie from Friday the 13th talking about Children of the Corn. In a audio commentary for that movie over there, which was a blast to do. We'll have another one dropping on the 15th. So, and all this stuff is going to be retroactive. So if you want to like subscribe in October or November or whenever the mood strikes you, all of that stuff will be there waiting for you. So thank you very much. We do have, they subscribed at the $5 level, because they're wonderful people. There is also a $2 level that gets you the same thing. So thank you for subscribing. You can find that at patreon.com/Legion Podcasts. And, the thing that we are shooting for is if we were, if we're starting to put together like $100 a month, which is a little extreme, but if we did, we could, really start thinking about doing a group meetup somewhere and offset the cost of that. So maybe we get together, do our own little movie festival or something. So I don't know. I have big plans. It's just, when do you have the time, and the money, most importantly. Paul says that he and Marco are going to start commentary and we'll donate one to the cause. That'd be great, man. Just, I don't have to be on all of them. In fact, we're probably going to get more subscribers if I'm not on all of them. Alan says, oui, la chienne est dans la salle de bain, which is what the dog is in the bathroom. Because chien, is that right? Chien is dog and chat is cat. My French is rusty at best. I think I can still count to 10, and I can ask you where the library is. Où est la bibliothèque? And I can tell you fromage is cheese. So, yeah, most of my French at this point just comes from remembering old Steve Martin bits. So anyway, thanks for those of you who've subscribed to the Patreon. If you haven't, and you feel like you're getting, I don't know, $2 a month worth of enjoyment out of Legion Podcast, please do. That would be great. So check that out. And I think that's going to do it. It's going to be kind of a short one here on the Morbid Monday, but I certainly appreciate you guys hanging out. As always, you can hop over to the Twitter if you're still on Twitter and follow at Legion Podcasts, and that's me. I check in, a handful of times a day. The thing I've been doing recently is I kind of start the day with a, hey, this date in horror kind of thing. And yeah, it's just, if you see something retweeted from the Legion podcast account, it is because I found it interesting or wanted to promote it. We said happy birthday to Jeffrey Combs yesterday, and today we pointed out that is the 25th anniversary of the premiere of The X-Files, which led to a bunch of stuff that Duncan and I did and don't admit to very often. Also, hey, speaking of that, we'll be doing a commentary, Duncan and I, sometime this month, for Duncan and Bo Come Correct, to keep, if we don't do one, eventually both of us just wither and die if we don't do like something every month together. In addition to that, we're going to be recording not he and I alone, but everyone is going to be recording that big, Best of the 80s podcast towards the end of the month, which I actually am taking a day off of work for, just because it's going to be that long. I know it. So, yeah, anyway. So that's it. Check out all that stuff. Hit up Legion Podcast. Go over to Facebook, where you can find us at /groups/LOE podcast. Also, you can see more out of me at /groups/devour the podcast. You can always email me at bo@legionpodcasts.com if there's something that you want to throw my way, if you have a particular request, anything like that. Abraham saying, without the X-Files, we would never have gotten the classic Brimley impression. Goddamn right. So yeah, there's much to be said for that. The X-Files is kind of where the show started to turn, and Twin Peaks is where it turned forever in a direction that we could no longer control. So folks, hey, thanks again for listening and watching. Do me a big favor. Have yourself a great rest of the week. Thanks for being here this time around, and have a fantastic weekend. And we'll see you right here next week, right here, for another Morbid Monday. So, bye everyone. Talk to you soon.